Former Representative Liz Cheney said Sunday that she is not ruling out a White House bid and vowed to help elect leaders who will fight against future challenges to election results as seen in the 2020 election. Cheney initially dodged a question about her 2024 plans, telling CNN State of the Union anchor Jake Tapper, "I will tell you what I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to I'm going to spend the next year between now and the election certainly helping to elect serious people, helping to elect sane people to Congress." When further pressed if she's not ruling out a presidential bid, Cheney said, "No, I'm not." Earlier in the interview, Cheney, a staunch critic of former President Trump, was asked if she would vote for President Biden over Trump if it came down to it, despite her opposition to Biden's policies. "We're going to see what happens," Cheney responded. "We're going to see how things unfold. I think Donald Trump is the single most dangerous threat we face. I would imagine that there will be a number of other candidates in the race that I think," before Tapper interjected to ask Cheney if she'd be one of them. Cheney further said she would help elect members of both parties, arguing, "I think that we could well find ourselves in a situation, given what we know the Trump folks are doing in terms of attempting to question the results of the election. We don't want a situation where the election is thrown to the House of Representatives and Donald Trump has any possibility at all of prevailing under those circumstances. So we have got to elect people who believe in the Constitution, who take their responsibility seriously to Congress." Cheney, who served as vice chairwoman of the House Select Committee on January 6th, did not hold back in her condemnation of Trump's role in the January 6, 2021 Capitol insurrection. Blaming the former president for broken the violence that day, the three-term conservative became one of the most outspoken GOP critics of the former president. Cheney went on to lose her seat to a Trump-backed challenger, now Representative Harriet Hagman, how do you say this lady's name, in the 2022 Wyoming primaries, a state where Trump maintained wide support among voters. Since her departure from Congress last fall, Cheney has remained a critic of both Trump and several Republican leaders, most recently blaming former Speaker Kevin McCarthy for the havoc wreaked on the House as a result of his ouster. In a separate interview Sunday, Cheney further claimed the threats being made against GOP lawmakers over the recent Speaker vote are absolutely being driven by Trump and his supporters. Asked on CBS News' Face the Nation about the threats some lawmakers have faced for not backing former Speaker-designate Jim Jordan, Cheney blamed Trump. "The domestic threats are absolutely being driven by Donald Trump and unfortunately some of his supporters, who in fact have encouraged and taken steps that have resulted in, as we saw on January 6th, political violence," she said. Several lawmakers who voted against Jordan, who withdrew from consideration Friday, publicly said they'd received death threats. So, there's not really much to say here. Well, I guess there are a few things I would take from this. "I'm going to spend the next year between now and the election certainly helping to elect serious people, helping to elect sane people to Congress." There's a lot of Democrats, and they do this with Pence as well, who feel like just because Cheney condemned January 6th, which was the right thing to do, right, this insurrection, and that Pence, said, I can't change the results of the election, I don't have the power to do this, etc., that these are good people. And I said before, I think they should be given some type of accolade for doing that because you face an immense amount of pressure from your own party. But the caveat to that support is you have to remember that Cheney and Pence both support Trump on almost every single policy proposal that's not stuff having to do with his vengeance and grievance towards whichever people he thinks wronged him, whether it's the press or trying to overturn election results. They supported the immigration policies, we can go down the list, the economic stuff, so that's why when I hear her say, "I'm not ruling out running for president," I think if she ran as a Republican, she would get creamed without a shadow of a doubt, just like Pence is getting creamed. But that's more so to do with her not bootlicking for the cult leader of Trump versus her actually having some genuine, big, huge policy difference with him that challenges the future of the party. And that's why when she says sane, serious people to Congress, well, hell, those same sane, serious people, almost all of them on the Republican side, can't even come out and condemn the insurrection, can't even come out and say, "No, Trump is lying. He didn't win the 2020 election." They're too afraid to even say that. They're too insane to even admit that. And really, it doesn't have to do with their sanity. It has to do with they don't want to lose votes or support of Republicans, so voters. So they go along with this charade. It's the same reason McConnell did it, right? Where up until the election got certified, he wouldn't congratulate Biden In fact, I remember there were only 4 Republican senators that congratulated Biden after he won. The rest of them took forever to even say a word to the man, and that's just show you how sick they are. But where she says, "We're going to see what happens. We're going to see how things unfold. I think Donald Trump is the single most dangerous threat we face." Okay, that's more of that same type of stuff I don't really like to hear, because the only thing that makes Trump more dangerous than the rest of the Republican field is that he would deny that he lost if he loses again, and that he has the whole Republican voter base basically, or at least a good half of them, wrapped around his fingers, to where they won't even consider anyone else. And it doesn't matter what he does. I mean, criminal charges he has, it's all fake news. It's all tricks. It's all hoaxes, and just they're so it's a cult. It's that. But regardless of that, just because DeSantis or Haley or, I mean, even like Ramaswamy, for example, just because any of those people win doesn't mean the day is saved. We can go back to going to sleep and not having any more problems. I mean, we're talking about a bunch of politicians who, no matter what, are going to support Trump's policies, which are the thing that were a very big factor in him even losing last time around anyway. So if Cheney decides to run for president, she agrees with Trump or has the voting record that she had of, was it like 91, 92% voting in favor of his policy positions, what's the difference between her and him? That if she loses, she won't say the election was stolen. Like, that's cute on paper, but what if she wins? Then we're going to be stuck with the exact same policies with a kinder, gentler voice and persona attached to it. So I hope she doesn't run. I think it'll be a big waste of time for her, whether she tries to run as a Republican or an independent. But I guess what happens is a lot of these people just don't like to accept that their career is over. Like, she doesn't want to accept, like, hey, I lost my House seat, and now I don't have any type of position anymore. But I think she'd be better off, because she's not that old. She's like 50 something. I think she'd be better off just kind of like sitting out the next probably 2 or 3 election cycles, maybe over the next like 4 to 6 years, and like seeing if Trump fizzles out, if he loses 2024, he's probably not going to run again in 2028, and then see how the party reacts when it appears that he's not going to run for anything anymore. Like, he's done running for stuff. I think if that happens and enough time passes, you'll get more voters that probably aren't as cultish about him, because right now he's the hot thing. He's been the hot thing for the last 8 years, but I mean, look at the 80s. Reagan was the hot thing of the Republicans. Now they really, outside of a few people running for president, they barely talk about him anymore. So, they cycled through these people really quickly. It may seem like it's been a long time, but in 5 to 10 years, I would be very surprised if they are still as hands-on about this guy as they are now. And I think that'll be when Cheney could probably try to run again and see about actually getting a seat back or winning something. But until then, I think she should sit this stuff out.